Today on the Boomer Technician channel, we're in the shop. You may recall in the last video, we went down to Albuquerque, New Mexico and hit a deer on the way. So the front end of the Soul Survivor got a little busted up. So this week we're going to assess the damage. We're going to remove the broken parts. We're going to either repair the parts or get a new piece and paint it to match, put it back on the car, and hopefully get her back on the road. And time is critical. I've got a car show I need to go to in Wisconsin in about 10 days. That's the Mustang II Reunion. It's a yearly event, and given it's a Mustang II event, I definitely want to make it. It's time to inventory the damage on the Soul Survivor from the deer strike. I guess we'll start on the passenger side and work our way over to the driver's side. The passenger fender appears to be jammed up against the door. The door opens correctly, but that gap is pretty tight, so I think it was pushed. The hood was pushed back as well. I corrected that so I could open it, but it damaged the paint on the cowl when I initially opened it to make the adjustment. The front of the hood doesn't fit very well at all, and that's because this front fascia, this fiberglass piece with the headlights and the grille, is cracked all up. Got a crack right in the center and several cracks over here, and then the bottom, can't really see it there, but it should have a panel above the bumper, and that's completely rolled under. There's some damage to the substructure too that you can't really see because that custom grille is covering it up. The good news is the bumper didn't seem to take much of a hit. It may be pushed back ever so slightly, but the brake trim strip, which is very difficult to find, is intact. So that's good news. And then coming around this side, the driver's fender appears to be perfectly fine. So other than all the damage up here and some panel adjustment, the hood and the fenders all seem fine. The bumper seems fine, so we just need to replace the front fascia. One of the headlight adjusting screws is also broken out of the fascia as well, but of course that will be replaced when we replace the fascia. Now that we've assessed the damage, it's time for next steps. I'm going to take the front bumper and the front fascia off. I'll do some repair on the fascia, adjust that fender, and put it all back together. We're not doing a body shop quality job here, show car quality job here. This is a car I'm driving to 50 states for 50 different car shows, so it's going to see some wear and tear, and we'll fix it up so it's a presentable car, but not a perfect car. Maybe someday down the road, I will take it to perfect condition, but it's awfully hard to justify the expense given the current value of Mustang IIs. Anyway, let's see how things go from here. Hopefully, things will go pretty smoothly. First thing I did was remove the bumper. The bumper on the Mustang II is kind of unique. It's a steel bumper, but it's got a plastic fascia over it. And I think I already mentioned that chrome strip on it, that bright metal strip, is really, really hard to find. It was only on the 74 and the 75 Mustangs. And typically when you encounter them in the junkyard, boy, they're busted up into a lot of different pieces. So it's great that the deer strike didn't affect that at all. That was one of the things I was really happy about. Pulling the grill out, not a big deal. The fascia is a fiberglass piece. Of course, the rest of the car is all metal. Pretty typical construction for a car built in the 70s. I think most everything coming off the production line used that same approach. Well, there's a better look at the broken pieces, including the bottom edge of that front fascia, which is pushed down, about 4 or 5 inches, as well as the supporting structure underneath. We've got a couple of pieces of sheet metal there to hold that fiberglass piece in place. Good news is this valance panel is all in one piece and doesn't appear to have taken a hit, because those are a little hard to find too. So we've seen the bad news. The good news is a couple of years ago I saw a 74 Mustang II in the junkyard, and I grabbed a spare front fascia. So here's the good news right here. Now, of course, the bad news is it's a used part. It's got a crack here, a couple of cracks here, and it's the wrong color, and it needs some paint. But you know, overall, it's good news. So before we do any fiberglass repair or painting or anything, we've got to remove some of these stick-on pinstripes, clean the whole thing up, clean the whole thing up again, and then we can get to work on the fiberglass repair. So I mentioned this was a fiberglass piece. I believe this is a molded piece. It's got a lot of complex pieces, details inside those headlight buckets. So it's a rather challenging piece to repair. All right, so we've got all the pinstripe tape off. We removed the retainers for the Ford lettering on the top here. We pulled the headlight buckets out earlier. Fortunately, this came with 2 brackets because after the deer hit, both of these brackets on the Soul Survivor were bent a little, but these are nice and straight. So we'll pull those off and give them a blast in the sandblaster, and we'll clean the fiberglass off, and then we'll be ready for the next stage. All right, I've got the nose off the front of the car. The battery ran out on the camera while I was finishing up, so you missed, there's a couple of nuts inside the fender here to hold it on, and that's about it. It popped right off once I had everything undone. Evaluating it, we got a bad crack here and here, and a pretty minor crack here, and this one is a little worse. It doesn't line up anymore. I could probably repair this. I'm not a great fiberglass guy, but it is definitely a repairable piece. My concern is, because these cracks are right in the center and it came in from the front, that this whole thing has been warped, and I won't be able to position the pieces exactly right so that it'll bolt up to the car and fit evenly. So because of that, I've decided not to use this one. And of course, when you're dealing with used stuff, nothing's ever perfect. This is a replacement part. It's got a crack here, here, and here. Those are all cosmetic. Those are pretty straightforward repairs. So that doesn't concern me at all. The other issue is there's some missing material down here. It's actually been broken free, and it's a fairly complex shape. So I think for that fix, we're going to cut the broken material out and cut a matching piece out of the original piece and then lay them up together. Now, when you're doing body work, there's 2 critical issues. The first is measurement, and the second is fixtures. So when I do the cut here, I need to measure very precisely and cut the exact same material out of the new piece that we're going to cut out of the old piece, so that when I put the patch piece in, it all lines up perfectly. The other good news on this piece, though, is it comes with a new grill. Because as you saw, the old grill is completely unsalvageable. But with this piece, we're in great shape, and we can drop it right in once we have the piece painted and mounted to the car. Okay, I got both pieces marked. They're both going to be cut the same way. We're going to start with a cut here and then come down to here on the inside edge of this tape. We're going to cut up through here on the outside edge of this tape. And then on the back side, we're going to cut across and drop down and come through the middle here and come to meet that previous cut somewhere around here. And this whole broken piece will come right out. At least that's the theory. We're going to cut the busted up piece first, because there's been a few times in this boy's life when the theory hasn't really worked, and if this just shatters on me or something, then we'll step back, attempt to do a fiberglass repair on this piece, and see how that works out. Well, so far so good. We've got almost all the cracked pieces cut out, and a little more flexible than it was before, but we've lost some support there. So hopefully when we put it back together with the new piece, we'll restore that. But that's kind of what I wanted to do. Now hopefully we can cut the other piece correctly as well. You know, working on fiberglass is a little like carpentry. There's a lot of different tools you can use to cut the fiberglass and to work the material. I went ahead and used this buzz saw mostly because I can do a plunge cut, but you could also use an angle grinder to do the same thing. Well, a moment of truth. Okay, a little long here, a little long here. Probably needs a little adjustment there, but overall, that's what I wanted to accomplish. From here, we've got to grind the back edge of this. Well, from here we've got to trim it down to actually fit, which is going to take a lot of fiddly work, and then we need to do some grinding here so it'll accept the fiberglass, and then we've got to set up the fixtures, and then it comes time to lay in the fiberglass. But I'll do all that work off camera and come back when we have it fitted in just before we move on to the fiberglass. All right, the piece is cut to fit, and I've got it tied down with some fixtures, well, a couple of pieces of flat stock with rivets holding the piece in place. This way I can push up against it and drive in the fiberglass without worrying about the pieces moving relative to each other. The alignment's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. And then once the fiberglass is set up in the morning, I can drill out these pop rivets, take the plates off, and then just finish over the holes where we mounted them. There's a pretty big gap on this side, but if you look at the design of the piece, we've got a mounting bolt here and a mounting bolt here, and they're on either side of this gap. So that's going to hold the piece together and keep this from flexing, which should keep it from cracking. So I think once we get the fiberglass laid in on it on the back side, we're going to have a good strong piece that's ready to be finished and look as good as new. So there was a lot of busy work associated with this fiberglass repair. Here we're doing the initial layer of fiberglass. We put the material down on the surface, and then we put some epoxy, some resin into some mesh that we lay over it. I think I ended up doing 3 layers of fiberglass on the back of this, which made it good and strong. Fiberglass repair, you know, we've been doing fiberglass work in America for about 60 or 70 years now. So there's not a big challenge to any of it. It's just kind of tedious work. As I said earlier, it's sort of akin to carpentry in that you're working with material that is not as formable as metal. But one of the important things to remember when doing fiberglass work is to find a body repair shop supply company and go there for your materials. You can buy fiberglass repair materials at most of the big box auto stores, but in a lot of cases, the material's been sitting on the shelf for quite a while and frankly just isn't as good a quality as what you're going to get at a body repair shop supply store. So, you know, they're happy to sell to anybody who walks through the door and just, you know, come in and say, hey, I got a small project here and go with their recommendations. I was really happy with this material. It's set up nicely. It was easy to work with. And when I was done, I felt like it was going to hold up over the long run and make for a nice, strong repair, which isn't always the case when you buy the stuff at the big box stores. Well, I was going to hold off and not show you anything until I had everything patched and primed and ready for the final coat, but this fiberglass work looked so good, I just had to show it to you. And then the other thing I wanted to show you was a really effective way for mixing your patch material, be it the fiberglass or the Bondo. And it's a good method for small work like you do in your garage, simple fixes. You can't really do it for bigger jobs. And of course, guys who do it every day probably don't need this, but for those of us who just occasionally do a patch job, this is a really good way to get your mixture right. So to mix Bondo, it's a 50-to-1 ratio, and it's a little hard to figure out 50-to-1. What you want to do is use one of these kitchen scales. It's got a glass top, so you can mix right on it, and then set it to grams. And we're going to go for 51 grams here. So this is a really easy bit of math. 50-to-1 is 50 grams to 1 gram of hardener. If we had 100 grams, we'd want to do 2 grams of hardener. And if we did 150 grams, we'd want to do 3 grams of hardener. And we're a little over 50 here, but close enough. So we're going to go from 51, we're going to add 1 gram of hardener. So drip it in until the scale reads 52. There we go. Just a little more for security purposes, since we don't have fractions on this scale. And from then, it's just your basic Bondo job, which you can see on, I don't know, 100 different videos if you're curious. So I'm going to get this mixed up, I'm going to lay it down, but meanwhile, I'm going to let you go. You've missed out on all the fun, well, most of it at least. I fiberglassed the back, fiberglassed the front, Bondoed and primed again, Bondoed and primed a third time. And my only real issue is this little divot down here, and I can live with that. Given this piece was all busted up, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. The headlight bucket fits in pretty good. I think I've got to do a little bit of relief here and there to make it perfect, but we'll deal with that when it comes time to fit the parts back on the car. But for now, I'm going to prep it for painting, and we'll get back to you just before I start laying down the color coat. Well, clearly I've been doing this project on the cheap in my garage, partly because I'm under a pretty tight time constraint. I've got a car show coming up in a couple of days, but also I don't have a spray booth and I don't have a compressor. So we're going to shoot this with a custom mix spray can. This is actually a 2-part epoxy. It includes a little piece on the bottom that you shove into the can to activate the epoxy. And then you've got about a day to use up the paint before it locks up in the can. So we're going to go ahead and shoot this with the spray can. I'm going to shoot it upside down, hanging in the air for a couple of reasons. First off, it keeps the dust from landing on it from gravity. It'll still pick up some dust as I spray because this air is not perfectly clean in here, but that will be the only dust that ends up on it. The other reason is these spray cans do tend to spit from time to time, and you get little droplets, and they'll end up on the work if you've got the work below you. But if you're shooting up on the work, the droplets will drop down to the ground and not end up showing up on the piece we're shooting. One other thing, when you're shooting, you need to use a volatile organic face mask. These cartridges have carbon in them, charcoal carbon, that absorbs these gases and gives you clean air. You know when they're worn out because you'll start smelling the paint, and if you can smell the paint, the cartridges are shot. But we're shooting in an enclosed space, and this stuff is pretty nasty, so I recommend using this whenever you're dealing with paint. I also used it when I was laying the fiberglass for the same reason. So there you go. I hope I haven't outraged people too badly by telling them I'm going to use the paint can, but we got to get this wrapped up and back on the road as soon as possible. Well, here it is after we shot it. Got a nice shiny finish, and the paint looks pretty smooth, but don't be fooled. There's a lot of scratches, there's some sags and a few drips. But overall, the work looks pretty good, and it's going to get us back on the road. Well, I'm not sure how well this reads, given it's really a big black hole in the middle of the room, but I've painted the brackets black and remounted them. I've got them loose because they need to float around so everything lines up. We'll tighten them down once we put the fascia on. The left and right mounts came off the junkyard car, so they were perfectly straight, and it appears the back mount, the body mount, didn't move at all. This piece was considerably twisted, but it's a pretty straightforward piece, and I took a hammer to it and got all the mounting points back where they need to be. I had to pop rivet a hole onto this piece, but I probably could have skipped that. I think it would have clamped pretty good even without the additional material. But beyond that, it's pretty much factory fresh and ready to go. Well, I skipped over the reassembly of everything. As the service manuals say, reassembly is a reverse of assembly. But you can see that all the damage has been repaired. The hood fit is not spectacular, but the hood fit was not spectacular before. We may be able to finesse that. We're sort of under a time crunch still. The paint match is okay as far as color goes. There's a rather glaring difference in finish there, as you can see. If I get a chance, I may color sand the hood and see if I can get a little more gloss out of it. But for the purposes of our immediate needs, we're in good shape and we're ready to go. And with that, we've wrapped up the project. The Soul Survivor has a new grille. It has a new nose. The damage has been repaired, and we're ready to go to the Mustang II Reunion up in Wisconsin. So we'll be on the road next week for that event with the freshly painted new front fascia. Let me just remind you that no matter where you go, there you are.